I was just a little premature with the button, Scott. So it happened. Okay, welcome to Hopeifiers. My name is Alan, the acapellist. I'm with brother Scott Sweetman. We welcome
Hi,
you to our
everyone.
show. Say hello, Scott.
I did.
Okay, good. I think I was still talking then. Sorry about that.
Sorry, buddy.
Okay, so Scott, I know that, as the co-host, that you have a theme for tonight that is going to be amazing. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Well, I do, and it's sort of my job to make sure that we have a one thing to try and keep us on track. Because you and I we're like the mitochondria in the ocean, man. We're just everywhere, permeating everything. But
Exactly.
I pulled out a quote, and this is by a woman that was really big in advertising, really big in culture, lived in New York, was really active around the 2000s. Her name is Adele Westbrook. Some people may know her, some people may not know her. She did a foreword for a book on Bushido, and it's really interesting. It's taken from an art perspective, and it's got a lot of great history and culture in it. But her forward to this is really relevant to what we've been talking about recently. You know, how we've been talking about, sort of the time is now, and people really have to either, get on with it or, get out of the way kind of thing. Because now there's so much going on that we really have to do something. And we see that repeated over and over in terms of the economy, in terms of the environment, and many things. So I just want to read this, and I won't make a habit of reading things, but I want to use her words because I think they're really good and resonating. Down through the ages, philosophers, writers, artists, and all reflective individuals have grappled with the quandary Shakespeare had Hamlet consider. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether to grasp the nettle of existence firmly and fight the good fight in whatever form an individual's strengths may render the most positive, or to shrug, throw up one's hands, and withdraw prematurely into the shadows. Or, which is even worse, because it causes pain beyond the personal dimension, thrash about violently, doing damage and harming instead of helping. Yeah?
Sure. Okay.
So to be or not to be, I think that's a great way to phrase what we're looking at now. And I think that we have to, as she says, grab the nettle. And that imagery is really good because people are often really uncomfortable taking action, right? Where often we think that not doing anything is the safe choice, right? And we know that sometimes that's much worse than making a wrong choice. And, I know I was part of a symposium 10, 15 years ago about the church's response to Nazism. And we had a lot of scholars come from Europe and the US, and we had a great discussion about how the churches were aware of what was going on, the genocide, and, they were aware of how it started. And the churches basically said, this really isn't our fight. We're not going to get involved in this. They're not persecuting the church. They're not attacking, Christians outright. And, in hindsight, that was a really horrible decision to do nothing because, the old adage, when they came for, the first group, I did nothing because it didn't involve me. When they came for the second group, I did nothing because it didn't affect me. It goes on and then it finishes. When they came for me, there was no one left to help. Right. And so the symposium really looked at how doing nothing is often worse than a bad choice. And, it was the sort of universal decision that any way that the churches could have acted to, bring awareness to what was happening, to, stand out and protest, to really make the world aware of what was going on inside of Nazi Germany. Yes, there would have been deaths, there would have been, all sorts of things, bad things that would have happened. But in the greater picture, it would have been better than nothing and letting it go on and on until we all know the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're in one of those positions now where doing nothing is truly a bad choice, right? And when she talks about the worst choice being to thrash about and causing disturbance and hurting other people, I think we see that a lot in people complaining and people being really negative about other people, about the situation, but not offering a positive change or not offering an alternative. Because ultimately, I think that if you're going to complain, you should have something to offer in return, right? Even if it's not the best thing, at least then it can help create a synthesis of ideas. It gets added to the overall consideration, and it may help the situation get better and move forward. What do you think, Al?
That makes really good sense there, Scott. Sure. In terms of, if you have a complaint about something, then you also have a suggestion, an idea, a way to move forward to make it better, right? So yeah. No, I love that. Love that.
So I think in terms of hope and in terms of making things better for the future, it's really important that people make a choice, a conscious choice, and say, if people say, there's nothing I can do, and you and I don't believe that. We believe that there's always something people can do, right? And I think you're a resource that people, if they want to get involved in, how does she word it? I like the way she worded it. I should have kept it bookmarked. Sorry, everyone. Grasp the nettle of existence firmly and fight the good fight in whatever form an individual's strengths may render that the most positive. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a great sentiment, and one that we've echoed a lot.
Right. And I like as well how it speaks to, the individual strength, the individual capacities, right? We all have a different package of, skill sets, abilities, capacities, interests, so to kind of develop that, to express that to its full extent, right? That would be the wish, the dream, the easiest way to live life in terms of the satisfaction of being who you are authentically.
I was reading some of Fleur's teacher stuff, and there was a great little story, and I think it's been sort of making the rounds of social media recently. And it was a teacher, and she said she starts the first day of her class, a younger grade, kindergarten, primary school, something like that. And she brings out Band-Aids because kid loves Band-Aids, and she tells everyone to imagine they have an owie, right? And so the first child, she says, "Oh, where's your owie?" And the first child maybe says, "Oh, it's on my finger." So she puts the Band-Aid on his finger. And the next child comes up and says, she says, "Where's your owie?" And he says, "Oh, on my head." And she puts the Band-Aid on the child's finger in exactly the same place that she did for the first child. And so the next child comes up and she says, "Oh, where's your owie?" And I say, "Oh, on my elbow." And again, she puts the Band-Aid on the finger exactly the same place as she did on the first child. And she goes through the whole class, and the class is getting more and more frustrated, and they don't understand because, their owie was on the elbow or on their head. Why was she putting it on their finger like the first child? And her response, I think, is a great answer for all of us. And her response was, remember this as we go through the year, that everyone at different times needs different kinds of help. And we can't always give everyone the same kind of help or the same kind of response when their problem is different.
Yeah, beautifully said.
And I thought that was so visually communicative that, children could understand it, that, how frustrated they were when their pain wasn't on their finger and the teacher was treating everyone exactly the same, right? Treating everyone equally, not equitably.
Yeah.
And, I think that a lot of us adults can learn from that too, is that the gifts that we have don't have to be for everyone.
No.
Right?
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, beautifully said. And what a gifted teacher, right? What an inspired way to express that, right? That we all have different, we're all at different places, different stages, different needs that we might have, right? So, instead of prescribing what we think the person needs, to understand what it is that they think they need and just help them to get that, right? Yeah. And then also, I think a lot of it too is just, if just to make it real simple, if there was something to lift that was 100 pounds and I can lift 100 pounds, I'd say, hey, go lift it to Joan. But if
Yeah.
Joan can only lift 25 pounds, well, that's a ridiculous thing to suggest. If she doesn't have that capacity or he doesn't have that capacity, then that awareness is obviously going to be, me making that statement is going to make situations worse, right? Whereas to say, this is what you need, how can I help you do this, right? If this is something you don't have the capacity for. So
I think it's a great story because it really highlights both sides of it. Like you're saying,
yes,
it highlights both to the person in need and also to the person giving. And often what holds people back is that, maybe they've been roughed or rebuffed, yes, or rejected when they've tried to help. Sorry, I have a
rebuke.
head cold tonight, everyone, so I'm a little bit spacey. But yeah, they've tried to help, and maybe it wasn't, they were trying to put the band-aid on the person's finger when it was their elbow that hurt, and that person may not have responded very well to that. And it's like the kids, they got really frustrated. Why are you trying to put the band-aid on my finger? I told you it was my head that hurt. And of course the teacher's showing them that you can't treat everyone the same. But I think that sometimes we get discouraged because not everyone has every gift, right? We know that personally,
No.
right?
Yeah.
Everyone has a different toolbox. And
Right.
part of the secret of living a hopeful and happy life is discovering what tools you have in your toolbox and how you can best use them.
Scott, I agree, but let me ask you this question. How about also being curious about the tools that other people you encounter have, right? You start having conversations with people, and I got lessons to learn from everybody for sure, but some of the things you learn from people that you wouldn't expect have a lesson to share with you, have some very very insightful lessons to learn, to teach you, right? So
Absolutely a great point. And I think that goes back to, once you realize that you're unique and your gifts are unique and you accept that, then it's a much easier jump to accepting everyone else as a unique being with unique gifts and, unique ouchies too, right? It's like the kids in the classroom. And we're always amazed by something that we find really, really easy and somebody else finds it absolutely devastating. Right. And we've
true.
all encountered that where, somebody comes to you and they said, oh, this is causing me so much trouble and I'm laying awake at night. And to you, it's like, that's no problem. Just do this, this, and this, and then move on. But for them, it's this monumental problem. And then in the reverse, something that you find really, really difficult is really easy for someone else. And
Sure.
often in close relationships, people get resentful. And I know that, when you talk to husband and wives or husbands or whatever the partnership is, people that are living together in a loving, caring relationship, often there's this feeling that the other person should somehow automatically know where their ouchie is and have something in their toolbox to fix it. Right? You're my partner. Why don't you know how to fix me? I love you. You say you love me. Why can't you fix me? And, that's one of those situations where, like you said, we really need to be aware of what's in other people's toolbox and the limits, both the amazing blessing that is, but also the limits that imposes on people who love you and who care about you. They may just not have the tools that you need at that time. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I know that I have been, because I was firmly entrenched in the man box, not very good with emotions, right? Because like guys don't have emotions. Guys are like, and you don't feel weak. You don't ever express that you're weak. You don't ever ask for help because you know everything because you're a guy. And so that's so expressing
You
emotion.
mean we don't, Al? No.
Sorry to let you know, Scott. Yeah, I have now discovered. Yeah, this is a shocker for you, but I've now discovered that we don't know everything. So here you go.
It's confirmed right here on our show. Men do not know everything.
Yeah. So, anyways, for that reason, if we had started having a conversation about emotional things, well, like I was just, okay, I got to go somewhere. I don't want to be here, right? So there'd be some reason I had to leave. But now I try to engage in those. I try to be a fully functioning human being, like a real boy, like Pinocchio, a real boy who has full emotions and able to express those and maybe cry sometimes and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've always been a big softie. I always cry at the touching part of movies and things. My dad was like that, so in private anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah. I understand, certainly. And I was raised by my mom, which I think makes a difference. I think those influences that affect us often,
True.
how we react. But
Yes.
I think and what we're talking about tonight is that, first of all, people need to realize that they need to make a decision. And this is something that is not just for our times. I think that's one of the great challenges in life is, there's a line out of a song in the animation Prince of Egypt, and it's called See Your Life Through Heaven's Eyes, or the song is called Through Heaven's Eyes. And there's a line in there that says, even though we have nothing, there's a lot of it to go around, right? And which I think is brilliant, but it goes on to say that you have to join the dance even if you don't know the steps. And life is like that, right?
Yeah,
if we keep saying I can't, I don't know how to dance, and not trying and not getting out there and moving to the music, then we're missing the opportunity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that life is like that. And I think that the COVID crisis, and you're better qualified than I am, because I think you've done way better than anyone I know at dealing with all the stuff that's gone on, and really turning it into a positive as much as you can. And I know that it's not that you're taking away from the people that have really, really suffered, and not that you haven't suffered, but you've really channeled the negatives and made them a positive personally, and you've been able to share with people at a really difficult time. And I think there's a lot to learn from that. So but I think that as individuals, most of us, when we're faced with things that are scary and things we don't understand and things that, I won't say difficult. I think humans are very problem solving oriented, but I think that often when we're faced with something that's really scary, or like you said, we don't have the lens to see it, whether it's emotions, whether it's sensitivity, whether it's prejudice, any of those things, we often, use avoidance, right? Like, and we've talked about that before. People always talk about fight and flight, but what's the one that people forget? Right? Freezing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, freezing. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where you just avoid the situation.
Right.
Altogether. So I think that we'd start teaching our youth to make a choice, and that's to realize that life is a struggle, and you can accept that it's a struggle and turn it into something that's positive and rewarding, or you can let it freeze you in place, or turn you into a really negative person who's trapped in that situation, right? Like, I've never met anyone who doesn't struggle in the process of life. Have you ever met anyone?
Nope. No. And like, further to what you're going to say, or what you already did say about the dance part, right? That you don't dance because you don't know the steps. Well, once you start, you're going to learn the steps, right? Is it going to be uncomfortable, and you might trip and might even fall down, but you get up and learn again, or try it again, and then you learn the steps, and then away you go, right? And that's kind of the learning. Do you not believe that learning is kind of like, I shouldn't say this. I was going to try and put that belongs to everybody. I'm going to say it belongs to me. Learning is a very important part of every day. That I learn something, read something I haven't read, watched a course or a lecture on something that would, that makes me think, makes me try and expand my thought process on how things are. So learning and very important for just the personal enjoyment of it, for also your growth, and also for your ability to be of value to somebody else, right? Like, it all kind of your ability to serve others too, right? So I think that's a huge. There's always pain in learning, is what I'm getting at, right? Anything you're going to
Yeah.
learn, it's going to be uncomfortable, and that's the nature of learning, and that you just have to accept that, and don't look internally like, oh, I'm so stupid, I can't get this. It's, hey, be patient. This is something you haven't done before. Try it, do it. You're going to fail at it probably. That's okay. Try it, do it again. Go slow, breathe. It's going to work out.
Something that you've said to me before and really helped me, and we've shared it before, but I think it's really important to share it again in this conversation, is that exactly as you're saying, you try something, and often we're really, really hard on ourselves, right? And that negative voice, that internal saboteur kicks in, and you talked to me before about switch that around and say, if Al did this, how would you treat Al? How would you treat your spouse, your partner, your friend? Would you be saying those negative things to them, or would you be saying, hey, good try? And I always think of, when parents are watching their kids try something, or when, your kids bring home this terrible painting. And as a parent, it's magnificent, right? You show it to someone else, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, that's nice, I guess, but you can see the brilliance in that as a parent, because you love them and you know that life is that process of trying. And, to get good at something, you have to do it bad, usually for a long time. And if you avoid doing something badly, you're never going to get good at it, right? We
No.
always tell people that when they're learning how to shoot. You're
Yeah.
going to miss if you don't miss the target a whole bunch of times, you're never going to hit the target, right?
No. It's true.
And if you do, it's by pure luck. You're not going to do it consistently. So life is like that too, and people really need to. Me too. And I know that I face this. I don't like getting things wrong. I don't like failure, and I don't know if that's the man box or just part of my personality. But yeah, and I know that at times that's kept me from doing things that later I was like, why did I not do this 10 years ago? Like, what was stopping me? Because I love this. This is great. I wish I'd been doing this for the last 10 years. I stopped myself because I thought, oh, you're really bad at this, don't do it. 10 years later, you're like, I'm really bad at this, I don't care, I love it, I'm going to do more of it.
Exactly. No, I think that you hit on a very important part. And Scott, back to where you were talking about, like, how would I treat somebody else if this happened to them? Again, the thought process is, if you just decide you are your favorite human being, you just decide. You don't have to justify it. You don't say, I'm my favorite human being because I'm X or Y or Z. I'm my favorite human being, just a preference, a choice you make. Then it's pretty easy. If you're your favorite human being, how are you going to talk to yourself? And if Scott's my favorite human being and he does something that I think is out of his normal, I'd say, hey, Scott, buddy, like, I think you're better than that. Like, I saw you do this, but I've seen you do it this way 1,000 times. Just saying.
What's going on? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we have an opportunity to be our own best mentor, right? Like, you and I are big into mentoring, and you're a great mentor for me. And we both mentor, lots of people through shooting and other activities and sports we do, and things we do in the community. And how often do we stop and mentor ourselves? This is just something that dawned on me during this conversation, is I don't take time to mentor myself. And, the conversation you were just having, that's a conversation I think we should all have with ourselves, is, like, hey, buddy, how are you really doing with this? Turn that inner dialogue onto a conversation with yourself, and, be your own mentor, and honestly look at what you're doing and say, okay, if this was my, mentoree, what would I say to that person to encourage them to be the best they can be in the situation? And I think if we could get that mindset in our own internal dialogue, we would be happier, more hopeful, more positive, and would be more successful at so many things. Would you agree with that?
I agree. And one thing I was going to add to what you said, being aware of the thoughts that you're having, like just recognize them, right? And don't be fearful of them. Don't be all judgy. Oh, I thought this, and that must mean this, and then that's going to mean this. The thoughts that you have. Kroll and I are taking that Marianne Williamson A Course in Miracles, right?
Right.
The thoughts, the only meaning they have is the meaning you have ascribed to them. So it is all it is a thing of curiosity to examine. It means nothing except for what you give to it. So don't be, ooh, I don't want to think about my thoughts because they're scary. And embrace
or just
whatever.
like this, right after I thought, boy, self-mentoring, I've said it, but I'm really thinking about it more openly and more positively right now, just talking now. My second thought was, well, why haven't you thought of this before? Are you a little bit thick? What? Right. That's the voice going on in my head. Right. And it's exactly what you're saying, is that we often shut ourselves down immediately instead of just saying, oh, cool. And, going ahead with it, because of course it's a good idea. Self-mentoring should be something we learn about and we experience and get good at, because often we are our own best mentors, because we can be honest with ourselves at a level that's hard or impossible to be honest with other people, and we should be able to be the most loving and caring and kind to ourselves, but our society and culture has taught us that that's wrong, right? You should never put yourself first.
But what's the reality of it? We only can give the love that we have. We can only give the compassion that we have. You're right. We can only give the caring that we have. So it's all, the more that we generate within us is of serving others as well as us, right? I believe that's how it works anyways.
I agree. And, we mentioned it before. It's like the really esoteric lesson that when you fly for the first time, and they always tell you, parents and, people traveling with the elderly, put your own oxygen mask on first, so that you're conscious to help the people who need to help. If you try and put their mask on and you pass out, then you're both done. So, that's pretty profound, right? Like, it seems. Go ahead.
Very much so. And further, remember I was mentioned before we started about this friend of mine, James, right?
Right.
And you need to meet James. You're going to really enjoy him. But one of the things that he's helping me see is even in terms of when we think that we're doing something for somebody else, right? That's what we think we're doing. In reality, we're doing it for us, right? I am kind to somebody else because I feel good by being kind to somebody else. It makes me feel good. I got endorphins. I got, this is a thing that happens, right? Got mirror neurons kicking in. This person is happy because I help them be happy, right? And, I think that's a beautiful thing. It's really, you don't even have to care. Well, this would be maybe a little callous. You don't even have to care about the results. All you have to do is take responsibility for, these are the thoughts I'm going to have. And this is what I'm going to project out. I'm going to project this out. In doing that, I feel good because I'm doing that. It is for me. Maybe it's of value to somebody else. I kind of love that. I've been working
I call
on
it the Christmas effect.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
it is. It's
you reach a point in your life, and some people when they're kids, and some of us when we're much older, that you really realize that you get so much more out of giving a present than getting one. And at some point, most people find themselves thinking, imagining what the person is going to be like when they open it and how happy they're going to be. And, not, oh, wow, you bought me something expensive, but really just the joy of giving somebody something that they genuinely appreciate and, resonate with. And I have always thought that if we could bring that Christmas effect, or what I've coined the Christmas effect, into daily life, where we're aware that it's exactly as you were just talking about, giving something is in fact giving yourself more than getting something, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it's totally within your control.
There's a brilliant lesson in that.
It's totally within your control, right? I see somebody walking down the street. give them a big smile and a wave. Okay, how you doing today? They give me a smile. Oh, that was good for me. It was good for them. It's a beautiful thing. Hey, brother,
I
I think
think
we
that
got to get going next week.
we do. I want to talk about
Anything
next
you
week.
want to close up with?
Yeah, talked about it a little bit around it. The power we have as individuals to truly make ourselves happy. And I think that we all, I know I do, put too much misguided strength in the world around me to make me happy, when in fact only I can make myself happy.
Scott Sweetman, that is beautifully said. You are a sage, man. That was awesome. Okay, we got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
We will see you next week, brother.
Thanks, brother. Take care.
Keep yourself well.
Have a good one, everyone.
Okay.
Good
Get a
night.
Matson.